Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the meeting here for the Frontenac Accessibility Advisory Committee. I've got the agenda here in front of me. I'll just start with the first call to order. Second point here, adoption of the agenda. The agenda for July 13th, 2021 meeting of the Joint Frontenac Accessibility Advisory Committee be approved.
Also move the motion.
Motion, okay. Bill? Okay. All right. And sorry. Okay. Yep. And all in favor? All right. Okay. Number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. I think there is any. Number 4, adoption of the minutes from the October 27th, 2020 meeting, that the minutes from that meeting be held, be adopted. Can I get a motion for that?
I'll move it.
Who is the other person? Oh,
Kurt.
Okay. Oh, Kurt. Okay. I'll have to get used to that. Okay, and all in favor? All right. Number 5, deputations and or presentations. Do we have any presents? There are none. Okay, there are no presentations. And number 6, reports to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Did you have something for that, Janet?
I do. So thank you, Mr. Allen. So I just wanted the report basically provides the committee with the updates of what has happened at the County of Frontenac over the past year. It's been a challenging year in which the committee has not been able to meet. So there's a lot of information on there. So the first one is the motorized vehicles on the KMP trail through Verona. So if the committee will recall, this came to the committee last year as a trial. And since that time, the Economic Development Office has done surveys and public outreach in terms of keeping those motorized vehicles on the trail through Verona. And the decision of County Council was to allow the motorized vehicles to continue until such time that the Township of South Frontenac has determined what they're going to do in terms of their seniors housing project in Verona. So as you can see from that, there was extensive public outreach done. There was surveys completed, and of course, the majority of people were not opposed to the motorized vehicles on the trail. It was about 50% that supported it, another 25% that thought a trial period and or extension of the trial period should continue, with a very small amount opposed to it. So County Council has opted to allow the motorized vehicles to continue through Verona until the time when South Frontenac determines what they're going to do with the seniors housing project, which will connect with that trail. In terms of parking lot improvements, as you can see there, the county is going to be developing a parking lot in Godfrey and at White Lake Road. And this is, of course, to accommodate the increased use of the trail, which we have seen over the last year, specifically because of COVID. It has gotten people more to the outdoors. So the trail use has greatly increased. So there's planned parking lots in those two areas. Those parking lots will follow the Aoda guidelines, and we will ensure that there is a minimum of 1 parking space there that meets the accessibility needs. And of course, once the development of that starts, those plans will come back to the committee for comment. In terms of our compliance audit, as the committee was advised a few years ago in 2019, we had to claim non-compliance with our Aoda audit simply because some of the documents on our website were not in an accessible format, specifically the PDFs. So since that time, the remaining documents that we were not able to remediate have been pulled off of the website, and we are now in compliance, and they're slowly going back up as we're able to remediate those documents. That slides into the next one, which is the conversion of accessible documents update. So we did have a system of Equidocs, which was not very user-friendly. We had a difficult time putting documents through that program. So what we have done is we have purchased the Adobe Acrobat Pro DC, which allows you to convert your PDFs to accessible PDFs. So I'm just actually going to, if she's okay to do this, I'm going to turn the floor over to Angelique Cardinal. She has really taken the lead at the county in terms of making sure that our documents are accessible. So she is the expert on that program. So I'm just, if you wanted to add anything to that, Angelique.
I find that the new program Adobe is actually quite user friendly, and what it does is just allows you to check PDF and do an accessibility checker on it, similar to Word or PowerPoint or some of the other documents that we work on. And it's just great, and there's lots of training available online to show us how to actually use it as well. So yeah, I find we're running our documents through that to make sure that the PDFs are accessible. Thank you.
And I would also note that Angelique's doing a lot of training of staff as well to make sure that we're creating accessible documents at the root of the document in Word. So we're really moving forward and ahead on that as well. The next one is an increase to the annual accessibility reserve. So each year, County Council allocates $10,000 to our accessibility reserve. At the moment, it's being slightly depleted because of the KMP trail. There's been, and that will come, you will see that in another one of the updates coming down a little bit further, but we were able to leverage some financing and some additional funding from the federal and provincial governments this year to do accessibility upgrades on the KMP trail. It does require that the county put a portion in itself. So the county actually had to put in an $88,000, which was taken from our accessibility reserve, but we were able to leverage an additional 100 and I don't know if I have it in here, but we were able to leverage an additional 100 and some odd $1,000 to go towards those accessibility upgrades. So there's a project proposal now going to council during budget time to actually take that accessibility allocation and increase it by $5,000 to $15,000 annually so that we can get that reserve back up to a healthy balance. And then the next one, of course, is the redevelopment of the administrative buildings. So I believe this has come to the committee as well in the past. It is moving forward slowly. We have received some additional funding through the modernization programs of $100,000 to start the reception area of the administration building. So hopefully that will start, we're hoping September or shortly after. It does need to start then. I would advise the committee that our chair, Mr. Neil Allen, has been involved in that project and was able to provide comments to the architect in terms of the design to ensure that the accessibility features are there. And then the last one there is the 2019 Aoda annual report. So as you can see, the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility have released their annual report, and there is a link there if anyone is interested in viewing that. So I believe that was it for my updates at the county. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in regard to the new administrative information you just gave us, do we have a record of the number of people who are actually accessing information on this, and has that increased or decreased over the last couple of years?
Sorry, are you talking about accessing the information that was on our website? Yeah. We do have a record of what's accessed. We have a record of what are the most popular ones, and those were the ones that were remediated first. Yeah, so we do have that record. And I believe the townships are going through the same issues.
Need a motion to accept the report?
No,
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 okay.
it's just for information purposes.
Okay, thanks, Janet. So now I guess we're moving on to the township updates then.
I believe there was an item added to the agenda, and that was the Snow Road. Is that correct? That's the installation of the accessible wash for Snow Road. I believe that's
Mr. Chairman, through you, North Frontenac, similar to the county, has reviewed the website for compliant documents and have started training our staff on remediation and are remediating the most accessed documents by the public. On today's agenda, we've provided the blueprints for the Snow Road Community Center accessible upgrade to the bathrooms. I've brought some larger drafts for the committee's review.
Yeah, the only comment I wanted to make is that the Snow Road upgrade that Eric is referring to is it's a result of an infrastructure grant that the township received for accessibility. And I think it was in the amount of $50,000, Eric, is that right?
I believe so.
$50,000 that we received as an accessibility upgrade for that. That it's an old schoolhouse turned into a community hall, and it requires accessible washrooms. So I think it's a great project. It really is. It's good.
Damn, this sounds cool.
What's the timeline on that?
I believe the timeline is the end of this year.
Were there-
So just one suggestion, perhaps, the representative for North Frontenac is Mr. Edgelieber. So maybe if it would be okay with the committee, that the township works with Mr. Edgelieber to make sure that accessibility. I believe that's typically what we've done in the south, is that Neil would work with South Frontenac if there was any questions or you wanted somebody to see it from an accessibility lens. We usually send the township rep if that's okay with everybody.
Right. Were there any other updates? With that?
So then on the agenda, there's
Thank you. For Howe Island, we finally received the federal and provincial funding that we had applied for. That's being used for a new community hub. Site plan development is currently underway, and there are a lot of accessible elements. It's very exciting for this community hub. There will be accessible washroom, playground, pathways, as well as the community shelter. The other item that's in progress for that development, there's going to be basketball, tennis, and pickleball courts. And I want to ensure that the pickleball court is accessible because there is an opportunity there for the community to play both para pickleball and mixed pickleball, which I think will have a fair bit of interest. Wolf Island, earlier this year in February, the project consultant for the Ministry of Transport of Ontario Dock and Ferry project advised us that a new temporary washroom for use until December 2023 was going to be installed at the dock. We asked if it was going to be an accessible washroom, and there was silence for a while, and then the response was yes, followed by a communication to the community saying the implementation of the washroom would be delayed due to a shortage of building materials. And then when spring came, we saw them building a concrete ramp and a safety railing. And now we do indeed have an accessible washroom, one universal, one accessible push button door, grab rails. Not as nice as the one we've just seen on the plans because we don't have running water, but we do have hand sanitizer. Over at Big Sandy Bay, a new gatehouse with an accessible washroom has been installed, which will be a wonderful improvement. We've been looking at the feasibility of having the shuttle bus that runs during the summer season between the dock and the village of Marysville replaced with an accessible vehicle. But due to COVID restrictions, we've had some delays on that. We completed research for a new accessible playground that will be installed at the community center in the village of Marysville. And we now have a Saturday morning farmers market in the village of Marysville. It's using a former parking lot opposite the hotel. So it's fully accessible for people with a variety of mobility devices. It's almost a perfectly flat surface. The other work in progress we have we'll be moving forward with needs assessment and community consultation for the accessible playground once we get into phase 3 of the provincial reopening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Great. If that's all the updates, were there any communications?
No, but if I could maybe just steer the committee back to the accessibility update report and specifically the project proposal to increase by $5,000 to the accessibility reserve. I'm just wondering, are there any comments from the committee itself? Because I do have to present this to council, and in order to get council's buy-in or their support, it's always helpful if I can get support from the committee in terms of these types of projects. So I'm just wondering how the committee feels about that, or
Sounds like a good idea.
I think our main concern as county council would be, is that enough money? The $5,000, because we're looking at 10 now, and then we're talking about another 5, right? Is that what your question was, Bill? No? Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think I would support this move if so long as we had information in regard to what the money was going to be used for. So rather than just installing the money and not having a project or projects online that we were going to support or partially pay for, it might be a hard sell. But from my perspective, I would support it, but I'd need some background information in regard to what we're going to use the money for. So.
So in response to both of those questions, the reserve currently sits at about just shy of $40,000. The KMP Trail it was used for the KMP Trail in order so that we could leverage additional funding from higher levels of government. If we up that to $15,000 annually, because there's only been 4 times when we've actually used that reserve. So is it ever enough? I don't know, but is it a reasonable amount to request the citizens to put forward through their tax levy? I think so. In terms of what the money's used for, it sits in a reserve and it's used for upgrades such as what it's been used for in the past was a portion of it was taken to leverage some additional funding for accessibility upgrades around the exterior of the administrative buildings. So if you'll recall, the county had to redo the exterior paths around the building to ensure that residents were able to get around the building. So part of that included ramps that were put into when you leave the Frontenac room. They used to have to step down, and same with the lunchroom, you used to have to step down to get onto that pad. So accessible ramps were put there. That was one way it was used in the past. It's also been used to leverage some additional funding in terms of the new counters that were put in at Fairmount Home. As you recall, the previous counters were not accessible because they were quite high. So the receptionist would have had to come around and actually speak to residents when they would come up and ask questions because it simply wasn't accessible. So the accessible countertop was changed there. There is a need at the county building that has been looked at in the past, although we're now sort of waiting until the redevelopment takes place. But for example, accessible doors. So there's power doors getting into the Frontenac room. As you come out the elevator, you can get in and out of the Frontenac room in the FPS suite, but you cannot actually get to the emergency exit that's at the bottom of the stairs. So there's a power door that's sort of missing there. So these are things that the reserve is used for. We can pull from that reserve when funding becomes available. There is an enabling change funding that comes from the federal government annually that you can apply to. So we would use that funding to leverage.
To follow up through Mr. Chair, one of the things that's happening ongoing this summer is the K&P Trail will be extended on up into North Frontenac. And there are going to be requirements for accessibility approaches to that project also. But I understand and know what we've done in the past. I'm just looking at when it comes budget time, that we need ammunition as a county councilor as to what we're using this money for. And I understand fully that generally it's a leveraging tool for upper level government monies. I understand that. So well said.
And I think as well, when we actually start new projects, accessibility is built into those projects. If you look at the report that was done today, the accessibility upgrades that are being done on the K&P Trail that we used that leveraging funding for were portions of the trail that have already been developed, but we're now putting accessible upgrades to those trails. As we move forward with the construction of new trail development, the accessibility will be built into it.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any other business then? If that's everything in regards to communications, was there anything under other business that we had? I don't believe so. Okay, I guess we can set our next meeting date then.
So typically we meet quarterly. We have had issues meeting, obviously, in terms of COVID and not being able to meet in person. So I'm guessing that with the vaccinations now in full ramp, that we're, knock on wood, not going to hit another lockdown. So our next meeting would typically be in 3 months, which would take us to September. And that being said, over the summer, we will be advertising for the Access Award. And something that I actually missed updating the committee on was we also have the Bang the Table community outreach platform now, which is an online platform where we can post projects onto that. And we can actually solicit citizen engagement through that. They're able to interact with that platform. So I think we're going to use that platform this year in order to encourage applications or nominations for the Access Award. So by September, we will be able to bring to the committee any nominations that have come forward, as the Access Award has typically been given out at the warden's reception. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the warden's reception again this year. If we do have to cancel it again or downscale it, the presentation may go back to December on the International Day of Persons with Disabilities Day, which would be December 1st. So we would take it to the December council.
So do we have a date then for September or?
So typically the committee meets on the second Tuesday of the month, which would take you to September 14th. Does that work for everybody?
7
At
a.m.
7 a.m.?
Fourteenth is good, yeah.
Work with Civic to make sure that we have the room booked, if that works for everybody.
All right, perfect. All right, so I guess we'll adjourn the meeting at 10:30. Can I get a motion then to adjourn? Okay. And anyone else? A second? Ed, okay, and all in favor? Yeah. All right. All right, well, thank you very much. Kurt? Did you say something, Kurt?
I said aye
Okay.
to
All
adjourn.
right. All right.
There's
Okay,
quite a
well,
lag. So
okay, well, thank you, everybody. That wraps up our meeting, and thanks for coming and have a good day.
thank you.